Hello people, this is Sonali, the Melodramatic Bookworm. If you've been here before, welcome back, and if you're new to my channel, welcome to the Melodramatic Bookworm family. Also welcome to my 2024 reading wrap up. Yeah, it's February and I'm only now getting to wrap up my 2024 reads. I read 143 books in 2024 and I found quite a few favorites, but there are also a few books that I did not like, which I'm like, so I thought instead of making 3 different videos about it, I'll bring them together in one video in which I will be tier ranking them. So in today's video, which might be a little longer than my usual videos here, I'm going to be tier ranking all of the books that I read in 2024, and I hope that you will stick with me to the very end. So before we start this video, a quick note about the books I'm going to be talking about. I will not be talking about all of them. I will be putting aside a few of the books, a couple of them which the authors of whom I don't want to platform at the moment, and a few others which for business purposes I don't want to mix into this list. So now before we start, I have to introduce you to my tiers, the tiers according to which I will be ranking these books. I did make a video using the same template back in 2021 where I ranked my reading wrap-ups of July and August 2021. So I'm just reusing those because I don't think I can move on from them. So the first tier, the top tier here is Zinda Hu Main Iske Liye. There's actually a song from the movie Zinda where it says Zinda Hu Main Kiske Liye, is wondering who am I alive for. So for me, these are the books, these are the kind of books that I'm alive for. Then the next level is Super Se Upar, which is a very famous dialogue that I think Shilpa Shetty used to use in reality shows when she found the performances amazing. Why I'm using this personally over here is that these books were great, they are amazing, but they are not at that level. I wouldn't give my life for them. And then third is a dialogue by, I think it was Salman Khan. It is Dil Mein Aata Hu Samajh Mein Nahi. So these are books that I enjoy reading. I really like them, but I cannot really explain in more terms than a few why I actually like them. The actual literal translation of this is a bit weird. I'm not going to translate it literally because it's very weird. The fourth tier is a dialogue from one of my favorite movies of all time, which is called Welcome, and it says "Seh lenge thoda sa." It's like I know there are a few things wrong with this book, but I'm prepared to bear it. And then another dialogue from another favorite movie of mine, which is Hera Fairy, 50 rupiya kaat overacting ka, because this is one of the lower levels and it's like it tries so hard to be a good book but that it just ends up annoying us. It ends up overacting, and so the tax on that book to say 50 rupiya kaat overacting ka. And last one, the bottommost, is the meme from the India-Pakistan match. I'm not really sure which World Cup that was. And then there's a Pakistani fan going, "Go bhai, maro mujhe maro." So these books make me feel like that. So these are the tiers that we will be working with today. So let's see which books go into which of these tiers. Okay, so I have my laptop over here and I have the tier maker open, and here are all the tiers. Here are all the books that I read in 2024. So let's get started. First is Roman Stories by Jhumpa Lahiri, and that book I wouldn't put it in the first 2 because the quality, I feel like it went down for whatever reason, but it wasn't that bad that I'm like, no, I hate this book and etc etc. It was good but with conditions. So now this is going here. Dil Mein Aata Hu Samajh Mein Nahi. Now second was Pines by Blake Crouch, and that is a very chilling trilogy, and there's this very dystopian feel to all of it, and it's gory, it's violent, it has that bloodthirsty feeling to it. So this first book, it was good but it was also slow, so I'm going to put this in the same category as romance stories. And then we have The Devotion of Suspect X. It is so good. The author has done such a fabulous job in keeping the suspense. Even though we know what happens, there's a murder mystery, we as readers know what happens, but to see the police and the detective trying to figure all of this out, trying to put two and two together, and how this particular person, they throw the police and the detective off their scent, is amazing. So this is going straight here. Right at Home by Bobby Burke. This is a great book if you're looking to get some understanding about interior design and to find out what your own tastes are. But I wouldn't say that I live for it, but also I wouldn't put it anywhere down. So we have only one place for it, which is super super. Next are the two remaining books in the Pines trilogy, Wayward and The Last Town by Blake Crouch. These are riveting reads, but The Last Town is irritating in the way that it ended it. I know this is fiction, I know this is not real, but So what I'm going to do is Wayward I'm going to put in this one, and The Last Town I'm going to put in this one. I mean, I don't have another option because otherwise the trilogy is great. And then next is Anthony. I think it's Let's Do Dinner. And he just makes not food for the common person. He sort of does this on the level between middle class and luxurious eating. At this point, I'm going to put it here. क्योंकि overacting तो बहुत था उसमें. Next is Bookshops and Bone Dust. Oh my god. Okay, this is one that I will live for. It's going up there. It is such a nice, such a lovely story. It's slow, it's warm, it's cozy, it's set in a bookshop, it has adventure, it has orcs, it's the whole package. Next is Kitchen, which I read for Literary Hanami. It is one of the most beautiful books about grief. It is a little hard to get through, but in the end, the story, the feelings, the emotions, all of it is just wonderful. So this one, even though it was not my favorite, I'm going to put it here. Next up is Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, and this was something else. It talks about black women, the lives of black women, what they had to do during those times, and how when a man does the same thing, he is sort of put on a pedestal. He did what needed to be done. But if a woman does the same thing in order to survive, she is called names, she is belittled. It's so clear in how it shows both misogyny as well as racism. I think this is set in 30s or 40s America, so you get the general idea of how it was. So this goes up to super super. Oh, next are a bunch of romance books that I read for the romance vlog that I did last year. So first of them is I Kissed Shara Wheeler, which when I'm looking back on it, it's like not the best. It was too roundabout. So this is going straight here. Then The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren, and this is here because there were a few things in here that I was like, I can't even really explain it, you know. Then next is What You Are Looking For is in the library. This goes straight up here because it is lovely. I absolutely love that book. Even like a year on, I still keep thinking about it. I still keep thinking about the lessons from that book, and it is just so wonderful. Next is Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. The miscommunication trope pisses me off because people just talk. If you talk, none of this is going to be a problem. Why don't you talk? I mean, I get it that it's not always easy to trust what the other person is saying, especially going by what both of the main characters went through, but to actually just not talk about it and make decisions and all when they could have just sat down and talked, communicated your feelings. It's Abby Jimenez, but she does stuff like this that sort of. So this is going here. ठीक है, selling it थोड़ा. Then is Icebreaker. Listen, This is one of my favorite books of 2024. Okay, it is an open door romance, but the open door romance is not what I love about this book. It's the banter, it's the found family, it's the understanding between the two main characters. That is fabulously written, and I love it for that. And this is obviously straight up going here. I'm not apologizing for the open door romance, but I'm just saying that this part, this understanding, this warm thing, this is hot, but this is like warm, nice. Next is The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. This is the first in the Dreamland Billionaires series, and I just think that Rowan is an a-hole. There's no two ways about it. I will not look at him in any other way. He's just an a-hole. I'm not going to overlook that fact and the way he treats people in his life. I know there's a lot of trauma, etc., but please, no. So this, I'm putting it in, it opens up that series. Next is The Lover by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and this is a novella. It's very short and it has this supernatural feeling to it. I mean, Silvia Moreno Garcia's books usually do have all that. I don't even know where to put this. I think this will go here. I wish it had been a little longer, maybe. Next is Wildfire, the second in the Maple Hill series after Icebreaker, and this goes super se upar because the bantering in Icebreaker was great. This one was also great, but it just didn't reach that level. And I loved Russ and Aurora with everything I have, but where is that camaraderie that books in the Icebreaker series need to be famous for? It's there, but it's not quite the same. Then comes Rosie and the Dreamboat by Sally Thorne, the author of The Hating Game, and this is another short story that was uploaded to Amazon, I think. And this is such a sweet story, I can't even begin to tell you. There's this woman who gets trapped in a spark treatment kind of thing, and now she's stuck there. Someone comes, I think he's a firefighter, who comes to try and rescue her, and the way they hit it off through the walls of that treatment tank or something, it's fantastic. The banter is good, it's sweet, etc. It's great. So this goes here. So next is The Exception to the Rule. This is an epistolary story, in the same format as Rosie and the Dreamboat. And this is between two people who are exchanging emails after they find out they're from the same town or something. And it is very sweet. It's lovely, but I think that's the extent of it. So I'm going to put it here. Next is Terms and Conditions, the second in the Dreamland Billionaire series, and that's going straight here because this guy is more of an a-hole than the first one. It's anyway, so next is a graphic novel called Stage Dreams. This one is going straight up here because it is sweet. It's very sweet. It's a historical fiction graphic novel. It's a lesbian story. It includes historical elements to it. Next is Drop Cover and Hold On by Jasmine Guillory. I didn't like this. The writing was weird. The plotline itself was weird. It was like you're forcing these two to come together. It's not that obvious that they are into each other. So there are some characters that you root for, and there are some that you're like, what are these two doing together? These two were like that. Next is Worst Wingman Ever by Abby Jimenez, and this one was a good one, but it was not the best. Like, it was sweet. I mean, this is also a short story and there's not much that I remember about it except that it was very sweet. Like Abby Jimenez usually writes, she's very good at writing this kind of stories. Next is Final Offer, the third in the Dreamland Billionaire series by Lauren Asher, and it's very surprising, but I didn't hate this as much as I did the first two books. It was good because it had a sort of a flesh to what the characters were all about. It's not just about, the grumpy sunshine story pushed forward into our faces. This has meaning, it has that hold, and it was well written. I wouldn't say very well written, amazing and all. It was well written. So this one, I'm going to push it here. Although overall the series is like these are open door romances, by the way. Next is Born a Crime by Trevor Noah, and this is going straight up here. The way he has written about his childhood in South Africa, about his experiences being a mixed race kid. His father is white, his mother is black, and to live at a time when interracial relationships were frowned upon or it was against the law, and how kids like him grew up, to not lose that streak of humor while you're telling that story, his relationship with his mom and all of it. It is fantastic. It's a very, very well written book. Okay, next, Full Metal Alchemist. I started Full Metal Alchemist last year and I finished the whole series. See, one thing I'll say about the Full Metal Alchemist series is that it is one of the best series out there, story series out there. I don't care manga or I don't care if it is any other thing, but it is amazing. So if you haven't read it already, I would recommend go and read it. Go into it blind and you will have the time of your life. It is amazing. So all of these are going directly to the top. Next, A Woman Is No Man by Ita Froom, and this is a Palestinian author who talks about being Palestinian in America. So in this book she talks about 3 generations of women and how they cope with being away from their homeland and settling down in a country that seems so alien, but also finding a community over there. It's heartbreaking. It will make you think. It will inform you of a lot of things as well, and it will remind you of your humanity. Next is Ace of Spades, another book that was fabulous. It's going straight to the top, and it's such a well-written, clever book, because when you start reading the book, you have no idea what you're getting into. It is a fabulously crafted book in which the author talks about 2 outcasts in a particular school, and when they get anonymous messages, things start blowing up and going out of their control. So how these 2 people manage it is what this story is about, and read it if you haven't. Next is Mother Country. This one is similar to A Woman Is No Man, but I still loved it in the way that the author has put in letters from a daughter to her mother, telling her about how she understands her better at this time. Next is Full Metal Alchemist. Again, I told you it was going straight up. Next is Instruments of Torture. This is a collection of short stories in which the author has written I think 8 or 9 short stories, where each short story is a play on a medieval torture device, and how she weaves these stories is just fabulous to read. Aparna Sanyal is an amazing writer, and I'm so glad I got to read this book. If you haven't read it already, please go read it. It's going to be so worth it. So this is going here. Next is House of Stone by Nobuyo Rosa Shuma, and this is straight here. Forgive me, but this is a book that I DNF'd at 46% if I'm not mistaken, and it was because this came up. Pause the video to read it and you'll see what I'm talking about. When the writing is like this, it just makes me not want to go forward. Next is Lost Kingdom by Laurel Black, and this one will go here. It takes a while to set up, but when you do, there is a lot of adventure, there's a lot of running away from the king's men. It's a fun read, but I'm going to put it at level 3. Then Eleanor or Oliphant is completely fine by Gail Honeyman, and this was a bit of a letdown for at least 70 to 75% of the book, and then it sort of things started becoming clearer. It ended up being a good book, if not great. So for this also I'm going to put it over here. In the end, the subject that she's talking about is pretty good. And then comes Your Utopia by Bora Chung. This goes seh lenge thoda. I mean, in the end, there were some stories in here that were fabulous. I really loved them, but there were some that I just tolerated for the larger good. I am seh lenge thodaing those few short stories while I'm loving the others. Anyway, next is coming out as Dalit, straight up here, because it's one of the most important books to come out in the 21st century. Yashika that talks about how her identity as Dalit had to be suppressed so many years because of society's mistreatment of Dalits, of their behavior towards Dalits. Plus, I learnt a lot from this book, and it opened my eyes in a way that nothing has ever done before. Next is Family Lore by Elizabeth Acevedo, and this was a book that I was so excited to read, but it ended up being a dud for me. So I'm going to put it here. I can't believe I'm putting it there in that tier, but it was just a... Then comes Full Metal Alchemist, and then comes Light from Uncommon Stars. Like, it started out great. The writing is beautiful, it's poetic, lyrical, etc, etc, etc. But what then? I see it, there is substance to it, but it's so thinly stretched that I'm like, no. It's still a good read, and I would still bear with it, but I wouldn't say wow about it. Next, Your Heart is the Sea. It's poetry by Nikita Gill. Where else did you think that was going? Next is The Antique Hunter's Guide to Murder. This goes here. Maro Mujhe Maro. This is a book that tries so hard and fails. It's like a combination of Indiana Jones and Agatha Christie. You bring it together and this whole combination fails. So it like falls flat on its nose. Next is Independence by Chitra Banerjee Divakarni, and I did a vlog for this. It was a subscriber pick. If you'd like to go check that out, link will be here as well as in the description box below. So this one is going to be a super because it was very well written, and even though it's like I would have loved for there to be more flesh to it, it felt like very patriotic, suited to the times that it is set in. Next is Bride. Oh god, no. Oh god. Bride is going straight here because it's like, what kind of a book was this? Why was this book? Like, there's a lot of knotting. I don't know what Julia Roberts would say. Like, oh no. Okay, next is The Overdue Life of Amy Byler by Kelly Harms, and this goes here. It talks about an important thing about women getting a break away from their daily lives and doing what they need to do for themselves, but it tries so hard in a way that it's like it almost becomes apologetic for the woman doing what she needs to do for herself. Then is, oh my god, Love Boat Taipei. Oh, Love Boat Taipei is just Maro Mujhe Maro level. Tries so hard, and it tries to bring in so many genres into one. It tries to bring in so many tropes into one that it just becomes a mishmash. Next is Red Queen by Juan Gomez Jurado, and this book goes dil mein aata hu, samajh mein nahi. It was nice to see how Antonia Scott works, and it was nice to see the policeman also, but there's also fat shaming. It's sort of talks about mental health in a way that is slightly derogatory. Next is Heartstopper Yearbook, and that goes straight here because to read more about those characters, those lovely characters, it's like, next is Full Metal Alchemist again. Then Funny Story by Emily Henry, and oh my god, this book was so good. I've done a full review for this book. If you'd like to go check that out, link will be here as well as in the description box below. It was so relatable to me, which is why I love it so much. So yeah, since I cannot go into much detail in this video, I'd recommend you go watch that video instead. This is going straight here. Zinda hu main iske liye. Okay, I'll have to scroll a bit, so you might not be able to see the whole screen. Black Wolf, this goes here again. Same reasoning as for Red Queen. Black Wolf is the second in the Antonia Scott series. Next is Everything We Keep. This goes here because why are you dragging it? Why are you over-explaining things? Crooked Plow by Itamar Vieira Jr. And this goes here. Super se upar. It's great. It's very slow. It's very sluggish. It's like wading through quicksand or something. But it's still a very interesting, very pertinent book, if in my opinion at least. Then you have Full Metal Alchemist, the next volume again. Then we have Not a River, which is again... See, Not a River is not the best, but it's so important in the way it talks about treating natural resources, treating nature, and not being callous with it, that it just goes to super super. There's no two ways about it. Then Abby Jimenez's Just for the Summer, and it is a fabulously written book. Wonderful. I understand Emma and Justin in a very visceral way. Next is the details. The Details by Ia Genberg. I wanted this book to win the International Booker Prize last year, but it didn't win. You have those books, right, that you read and then you close and you don't know what to do with your life. This is one book for me that I keep thinking on an everyday basis. Then again, Full Metal Alchemist, straight up here. What I'd rather not think about is a book that I'd rather not think about. It's like this. Then On Earth We Are Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. And I don't even think I need to explain why I've put it in this tier. I did a full review, or it was a reading vlog because it was a subscriber pick for this book. If you'd like to go check that out, a link will be either here and or in the description box below. So it's just purple prose, man. A lot of purple prose. Then Kairos. I know that book won the International Booker Prize 2024, but that is a book that makes me violent rage. It's all everything. Because if you put a 19-year-old girl and a 53-year-old man together and say it's a love story, no. Against the Loveless World by Susan Abulhawa. Top tier. It is top tier writing, the story of Palestinians and their fight for their land, the resistance. If you haven't read it, if you want to learn more about the Palestinian resistance through fiction, or at least however much fiction can offer you, this is one book that you should definitely read. Friends, Lovers and the Big Terrible Thing by Matthew Perry. I think you will understand why I'm putting it in that tier. Again, Full Metal Alchemist, Full Metal Alchemist. This is more of a Seh Lenge Thoda kind of book, because it was not my most favorite, but I couldn't find any fault with it. Next is another Full Metal Alchemist. There's a lot of those. And then Small Things Like These by Claire Keegan. I'm putting this here. It is set in an old Irish village, and it talks about the church and about how the church treats women, how misogyny is so rampant. Wonderful, wonderful writing. It's a thin book and it's a very quick read, but it's also not a quick read because you will pause and want to take deep breaths, try to not want to punch your fist through a wall. I keep forgetting this. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This one was quite okay. This one was a good one. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder was good, but I feel like it stretched on for way too long. Pip and Ravi trying to find out what is going on in that and them uncovering all of these details. It was good, like in a very Nancy Drew meets Hardy Boys kind of way, but it was still not my favorite. Next is Everything We Left Behind. This one, Seh Lenge Thoda, because that is such an improvement on the first book. This talks about two perspectives and how they two meld together in this very unlikely situation. It is very interesting, more than the first book, which is Everything We Keep. Next is The Last Time She Saw Him. This is going straight here because there are no two ways about it. It's just bad writing. The author tries to do so much of detective whiz. I'm going to find out everything about this, but then it just falls flat on the face of the writing because there's no clarity, there's no understanding of where the plot is going, and if something like that happens, then you know that the book is doomed. Okay, next is Alone With You in the Ether, and that is a book that is pure romance. See, in real life we think that, oh my god, I would love it if we had a love story like the one they show in movies. But obviously we also know somewhere in the back of our heads that that is not possible. So that the realistic love story of the possibility of how two people come together and how they work with each other, that is what this book is about. And oh my god, the writing is, I'm a fan. So it's going straight to this, the first tier. So next is Soulless by Gail Carriger. This is a book that I read last year for the first episode in the Reading Booktuber Favorite series. I enjoyed this to no end. So this is going straight over here. because it was that much fun. Next is Check and Mate, which I'm going to put it here because it's sweet, it's lovely, but it also takes a bit extra time to say what it's trying to say, and sometimes it goes on unnecessary tangents that I felt were not really needed, but it's still fun though. It's still a nice read. Now next is We Could Have Been Friends, My Father and I by Raja Shehade, and this was also a book that I read for reading booktuber favorites, and this goes here. The details, the facts that are coming through in Raja Shehade's memoir, this memoir, it will give you a new perspective. If you weren't convinced before for whatever reason, this is a book that will open your eyes to the situation in Palestine. Must read, must read. Next is the reappearance of Rachel Price. I've already done a video about it, but spoiler alert, I did not like this book. It was too long-winded, it was too muddled, confused in itself. So because of that, it's going here. 50 रुपया cut overacting का, because इतना overacting क्यों था उसमें. Next is Learn by Heart by Emma Donoghue. This is also a good book, but it's not the best, and the writing was, this is a fictionalized version of a true story. Okay, but you know. Then comes An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green. I really wanted to love this book so much, but I ended up not liking it at all. What was the writing trying to achieve? What was going on over there? I have no idea, not to this day. Like, it's supposed to be some sort of sci-fi kind of thing, but it's also like One by One by Frida McFadden. I think this was my first Frida McFadden book, and it was okay. I'm going to put it in the third tier. I mean, it was spine chilling and it got dark quite quick, but the writing didn't just pull me in as much as I would have loved it to. Then Anyone's Ghost by August Thompson. I mean, I get what the author was trying to do, but there was just too much drug use for my liking to actually get into the story, because it just took away from what the characters could have been instead of just being defined by their drug use. I want to know about the characters, not about what they are snorting. Next is Agatha Christie, The Body in the Library. I read this, I think, when I was in India and loved it. It goes here. It's not my favorite Agatha Christie, but it's still a nice, riveting murder mystery. Next was Bahut Dur Kitna Dur Hota Hai, and this goes straight up because this is a travelogue in which Manav Kaul talks about roaming Europe, his feelings as he is going through the lanes of Europe, snow-capped mountains, sitting in a cafe, writing his book and doing all this sort of things, and it's just so lovely. This is in Hindi. That's the only book that I read in Hindi last year, and it was fabulous. I'm now a fan of Manav Kaul's writing and I cannot wait to read all of his other books. Next is Can't Spell Treason Without Tea by Rebecca Thorne. So much fun. There is magic, there's a Queen's Guard, they both run away and they open a tea shop in a very remote town, and how they manage through all of this and how they get on with their life while living with the fear that the Queen might come and look for this Queen's Guard because she ran away. It's amazing. It's a lesbian love story and it is fantastic. You have to read it. It's not my favorite of 2024, like I said before, but it's still super super. The second book was called A Pirate's Life for Tea, which I think it's coming later on. So next is The 7-Year Slip. This one is going here. One of the main characters, the female main character, works in publishing. It gave me the push to finally want to do something about my manuscript, to do something about my story writing. I mean, I didn't get to it, but it's been stuck here since I read this book. So for that, I'll always be grateful to this book. Next is White Nights by Fyodor Dostoevsky, and this goes here because it's just throughout the book you will feel like the male main character is like even the female main character. At one point I was like, babe, you just met him five minutes ago, what are you talking about? But then there's this whole talk about loneliness and solitude and walking through the streets of Petersburg and all of this, and you just get taken in by the story and you're like, okay bro, I get it, I get you. Next is a Booker shortlisted book, and that is Tonya Devotional by Charlotte Wood. This is an Australian author and this book is set in Australia. It was good, but in hindsight I'm like, huh? Why? So this goes sailenge thoda. Because it was good, but it was not that good, if you know what I mean. Next is As You Like It. It was super. Like, I don't think I have to explain anything else other than the fact that it was a Shakespeare play. And yes, obviously a lot of what's going on there is very backward. It doesn't excuse anything, but the writing, the humor, the feeling, the emotion in it was fantastic. Next is Textbook Romance by Kristen Bailey. This sort of goes over here because it was sweet, but the storyline, it sort of felt like it was a little dragged, a little too dragged. Then there's The Switch by Beth O'Leary. This goes here. Fabulous. I listened to it on audiobook, and the actors for both Eileen and Lena, they did such a great job. I think Lena is voiced by Daisy Edgar Jones. The way they both brought emotion into the story. Eileen is Lena's grandmother and she lives in a town, in a sort of a village, and Lena lives in London, and they both switch places for two months, I think, on Lena's sabbatical, and they try to see where their life takes them, and it's really fun. If you haven't read Beth O'Leary before, then this is a book that you can definitely pick up. It's great. Then there's Knife by Salman Rushdie, in which he talks about the incident that affected his life so much, when he got stabbed, and he talks about how his feelings and mindset was before the attack, during the attack, and after the attack, during his long recovery. And he is funny, he makes you feel things, and he writes this in a simple but hard-hitting narrative. So this is a book that will go here. Next is Giovanni's Room. Oh, Giovanni's Room is going straight here because it is a classic. Again, one book that I've done a reading vlog for. If you'd like to go check that out, again, link here or in the description box below. Don't forget to see it, and please do read Giovanni's Room because it is a classic that you should not miss. If you are at least an intermediate reader, this book is one that you should never miss. The Midnight Feast by Lucy Foley. Maro, like, no, I don't even want to talk about that book. She followed the moon back to herself. I liked it, but it was like 2 short poems. In a few pages there were like 1 or 2 words or something. I'm like, is that poetry? But during the other poems, I'm like, this is very hard hitting. This is important. So it's a mix of both, which is why I'm putting it in the 3rd tier. Then Detransition Baby, super se upar. Next is The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett, and this will go sailenge thoda. I mean, sailenge thoda applies to both the writing, but more to the casual racism that the author has put down in the book. I know it's a classic, it's a fun classic, etc, but I'm not going to overlook that just because it's a children's book. If it's a children's book, I'm going to focus my laser eyes on that even more, because is that the kind of thing you are teaching children? Next is Writer's Guilt, which is going here. It is a poetry collection written by Akhila Krishna, and it is one of the best poetry collections that I've read in a while. It is hard-hitting, it is relatable, and it is just lovely in a lot of places. Next is Daydream by Hannah Grace, and this is the 3rd in the Maple Hill series, 2 of which I read in earlier. This one didn't live up to those 2. So what I'm going to do is, this is going to come here. Before We Forget Kindness is the 5th in the Before the Coffee Gets Cold series, and it was a good read. It was very nice, warm, and makes you think that kindness is so needed in this world. And the thing about these books that I like is that you can pick up one story from every book and you can read it and you'll still understand the whole context. because in each book the author has given the rules of the cafe and what all need to be followed in order for you to be able to travel back in time. Now before we forget kindness, we'll go to here. Into Thin Air. I've spoken about it recently in a Reading Booktubers Favorites video. Into Thin Air is John Krakauer's memoir about him going on a 1996 expedition to Mount Everest. Natural disasters made sure that a lot of people were left dead, and he writes about his experiences in this book. It was an interesting read for sure, and I sort of nitpicked more about how he's writing in the video. Okay, Adulthood is a Gift. Is it? They are comics, and this will go here, or should it go here? These are the kind of things that I do live for, because I love the fun, but I also love the sort of introspectiveness that comes at the end of this book. Then The Life Impossible. Oh, this is such a tricky book to tier rank, but this is going here. I know it's not my favorite of Matt Haig's books. There's a lot he's trying to do, and he does it successfully as well, but there are these little points where like he's trying too hard, but it's still a good book. It's not bad. Murder in the Family, sehlenge thoda, because it's like weird. It tries too hard. It's too long. It doesn't need to be that long. Like the twist was good, but it's still, when you are doing this to get there, it doesn't make sense. Days at the Morisaki bookshop, sehlenge thoda, because the first half was good. I didn't like the second half at all. It is about this woman whose life is turned upside down, and now she doesn't know what to do. So her uncle, who owns a bookshop in Jimbocho in Japan, calls her and says that, you know what, you should come and live here for a bit until and unless you get back on your feet. So she goes there, and how her life changes after that forms the rest of the story. Next is The Situationship by Abby Jimenez. There are a lot of Abby Jimenez books over here. This will go here. It was a good book, but it was nothing, oh my god, wow. Next is The Shadow Key, which is again here, because it takes too long to make its points, but if you stay with it to the very end, then the payoff is great. So it has gothic supernatural vibes to it. It is intense, it is interesting, and it gives you a glimpse into the Welsh countryside as well. So maybe that is something that you can pick up actually. Next is 50 रुपया नहीं 100 रुपया काट overacting का. Like this is a book that I did finish reading this book. It's just makes you feel like that. Makes you want to eat your hair. Anyway, next. Zaitoon, sehlenge thoda. Again, this is also long-winded. I don't know why I have this problem, but it rubs me the wrong way, because I know what he's doing. I understand why he has to do what he's doing, but still, it's... Next is Billu Buttons. It's very sweet. This is a children's picture book. Next, A Pirate's Life for TC. We are here. This is going again here. Full of pirate adventures, and you have a lot of introspection about pirates coming in this book. So this is one that you should definitely pick up. Cozy Fantasies, Can't Spell Treason Without T, and A Pirate's Life for T. Three Wild Dogs and the Truth. This is going straight up here. It is next level. The memoir that Marcus Zusak has written about his 3 wild dogs that his family took in, who adopted. It will make you laugh, it will make you cry, it will make you emotional in so many more ways than one. Next is Only Dull People Are Brilliant at Breakfast, and for this we are going to Dil Mein Aata Hu Samajh Mein Nahi, because some of these written in the early 1900s, you are trying to be a rebel, but you are also doing what society does to women. I mean, I like most of what he's saying in there, because it's like funny and witty, and it will make you laugh, because those one-liners, they pack a punch. But some of the other things are like, are you okay, bro? I mean, he wasn't, but still. James, I don't have to think twice about this book. It's a retelling of Huckleberry Finn from the perspective of the enslaved Jim, and it is one of the best books. It's very important. Read it. It gives you a perspective, new perspective. It is easy to read. You will get through it fast, but along the way, the punches to your heart and your gut that you get, unparalleled. House of Frank. This is another book that was fantastic. This is a fantasy book. It talks about sisterly love, about doing the right thing. It has found family. It has a fantastical premise, and this is something that I was so glad to receive an ER of via NetGalley. Somewhere Beyond the Sea. Again, I'm going to put it in Super Se Upar because I feel like the author has dragged the story out, but he also has done a good job of writing these characters and of fleshing out the story. It is great, but if you look at the nitty-gritties, then there are some things that are like so much fluff. But it's still a great, fantastic book. I was crying, and especially at the acknowledgements towards the end, I was like full on crying. I Who Have Never Known Men, straight up, I live for such writing. This is about women who were in a prison. One fine day, a siren sounds and their captors, all men, they run away, leaving the door open. So now these women come out and now they have to find a way to survive. How do they survive? Chilling. It is scary, it is pertinent even in this time and age. I think this was written in the 60s or 70s. It was originally written in French and translated into English. Next is Hereafter by Amy Lynn. This one, I don't think about this book that much, but it is still a fantastic book about grief and how the author coped after losing her husband while unwell. It's a short audiobook. I got this as an ALC from Libro FM, although I don't like thinking about that book too much because of the topics it talks about. What Lies Between Us. Oh, this goes directly to the top. It is unhinged in the way it talks about relationships, a mother and daughter relationship especially. I cannot even begin to explain how disturbed I was after I finished reading this book. John Mars writes this deranged stuff and I'm like, are you okay, bro? Next is The Happy Life of Isadora Bentley, and this goes in Super Se Upar, because I saw myself in Isadora and I related so much to so many of Isadora's experiences, life experiences, that it just made me, Next is Daughters of the Sun, and it's going straight there. Ira Mukhoti writes the account of the Mughal women in a way that is so well researched and so eloquent, and it flows right from the beginning with I think it was Khanzada, and then goes on to Gulbadan and all the women surrounding these women as well, and then goes down to the last Mughal women. She writes it in a way that will make you think that, oh, this is more about the men and their exploits than the women. But when you think back on it, you retain more about what the women did. Next is The Answer Is No by Frederick Backman, and this is a first actually, because usually Frederick Backman books go straight up at Zinda Hu Main Iske Liye in the first year. Next is Mouthful of Birds by Samantha Schweblin, and this is another disturbing collection of short stories in which the author talks about the things that women go through every day, but in a way that will twist your mind. So this is something that I loved, but I'm also like, why do I love this book? So it's like, dil mein aata hu, samajh mein nahi. Next is Hercule Poirot's Christmas by Agatha Christie. I read this around Christmas time, and I think this goes to Super Se Upar because it was a fun, intriguing read, but it was not at that Murder on the Orient Express or the Murder of Roger Ackroyd level. Next is There's Something About Meera. Again, it goes to Super Se Upar. This is Sonali Dev's new book. In this, we are talking about a woman who is trying to understand her life better. Her relationship with her brother is not that great. Her parents are controlling. She just wants to let go for a bit. She doesn't want to be held back, and she wants to live up to her full potential and not what someone else is saying, even if that someone else is one of her parents. This is a book that made me cry. It's so relatable in a lot of ways, and as Indian people, if you read it, you'll see that a lot of us are like, we need to be this particular brand of person. Next is The Girl Who Saved Christmas by Matt Haig. Super Se Upar, because I don't have to explain. Wing. This was a DNF. By the way, Kairos was also DNF, but this was another DNF, my last DNF of the year, and it was weird. This is the story of 4 girls and their teacher who go missing on a camping trip, and we are seeing this from the perspective of the principal of their school. We are seeing just the principal and her feeling. It doesn't take anybody else into consideration. It's just like me, myself. She's looking into herself. What we want is a story of the 4 girls, and the writing tries to be so poetic and so purple prosy that the reader sort of becomes irritated with what's going on. Then the Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. This we go to Super Se Upar. There are just so many characters. Yeah, this is set in a retirement home, and the old people at that retirement home, someone is murdered, and they start getting into the investigation of sorts. It's very fun, but it's also like too many characters to keep track of. So it's sort of, that's why it didn't go to level 1. Lessons in chemistry, straight up here. Fabulous writing. If you've seen anybody say that this book is amazing, yes, it is amazing. I am confirming that for you. Then is Orbital. This is Zinda Hu Main Iske Liye. This is the kind of writing. I wanted this book to win so badly, and it won the Booker Prize 2024, and I am so happy. But it's a fabulous writing, so poetic. It takes you out of yourself, it puts you in space, and it gives you the bigger picture. My whole worldview changed when I read this book. What Does It Feel Like by Sophie Kinsella, Super Se Upar, because it is an autobiographical fiction in which the author is talking through the main character story. She is talking about her own life. She had cancer, I think, of the brain, and how she is recuperating and how her family stood by her, as they should, but she's talking about what all they did to stand by her. This book doesn't give you a break anywhere to become joyful, in the sense that it doesn't make you laugh at any place. It makes you very emotional. Meter to 10, again, Super Se Upar. Spoken more about it in my International Booker video. Go check that out. The Safekeep, another banger. It was shortlisted for the Booker Prize 2024, and it is something else. It makes you think. It makes you go over a lot of things that have been told to you. I didn't think I would love this book so much, but I did. Lying Beside You by Michael Robotham. Seh Lenge Thoda, because it felt really long-winded. It just didn't cut it for me in the terms of a murder mystery. Maybe the last part was like very empowering, but overall it didn't have much of an effect. Next is The Forest Bonds by Vardhini Amin, and this is a very sweet story about nature and how you should respect nature, and it's about trees coming to life and about how humans are hacking their way through forests and killing the forests to have their own life moving forward. I don't know what life will be there when the forests that support us are no longer there, but. And last but not the least, not in my book. This is like Seh Lenge Thoda. This is a romance book which I read on the plane, which was a very bad idea if you ask me, because there are a lot of spicy streams in here. But it also felt like a lot of ping-ponging, a lot of seesawing, and a lot of stretching of the story, draggy flow, you know the usual complaints that I have. So here you go. This is my tier ranking of my 2024 reads. There is Zinda Hu Main Iske Liye. These are books that I absolutely God tier loved. Then there's Super Se Upar, which are also great, but they're just not that top tier level. Then there are books that I liked, but I cannot justify liking them. Then there's Seh Lenge Thoda. I mean, there are good parts in the story, and I Seh Lenge Thoda the remaining parts of the story. Then there are some books that were just overacting, so I cartofied 50 rupiya. And the last level were just plain irritating. And I should say that if you ask me for a recommendation, the first 2 tiers, which are Zinda Hu Main Iske Liye and Super Se Upar, are books that I recommend with all my heart. Maro Mujhe Maro is just like, no, I will not recommend those to you. So that was my 2024 reading wrap up. You've seen me tier rank all my 2024 reads. You've seen my favorite books. You've seen my least favorite books. I've talked about books that I DNF'd. So, what did you think of this video? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Which of these books have you read? What did you read in 2024? What were your favorites? And what were your least favorites? Which books did you DNF? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. If you like this video, please like it and share it to spread the word. And if you like my content and would like to see more from me, don't forget to hit subscribe and click on the bell icon beside the subscribe button to get notified as and when I post new videos. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Until next time, keep reading, keep watching, and add melodrama to your life.